running back to his right. He's got 4 receivers. Milroe looking, throwing deep. He's got Ryan Williams caught. He's running down the sideline. Breaks a couple tackles. Running. Touchdown, Alabama. What a play. Touchdown, Alabama.
And here's the snap. Hands it to Audric Estime. And that is and should be a touchdown. Here we go. Bryson Barnes has got his back behind him. It is Jaquindon Jackson. Here's the snap. Bryson Barnes looking deep. He's got a man. It's caught! He's got touchdown early. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Cooper Naylor, and it is great to be back here on YouTube. I know that it has been quite a while. It has been quite a while since I've been here on YouTube. Rumble, I know it's been even longer for you, and of course, I got my computer over here where I can see the Rumble chat, which I've never been good at keeping up with the Rumble chat, but I'm going to try to do my best for now on with it. And of course, on Facebook, I've got viewers there too, I believe. So we've got all 3 of those platforms connected here tonight. So basically tonight, what I want to do is just talk about whatever I want to talk about. There's a lot that I can talk about that I would like to. And so, we're going to dive into it here tonight. So it's not like anything super professional tonight. It's just basically me coming on here wanting to talk. Also, this is going to be our setup for a little while until we are working on a main set. It should be done soon, but definitely before next college football season, it'll be ready to go. So that's exciting news coming from that. So, of course, got a lot I want to get into. We're going to start tonight with, basically, I'm going to put it up here. Basically, we're going to do some movie reviews, miniseries review, one movie, one miniseries, and then I got 2 football games I want to really talk about that are coming up on Friday and Saturday. So, of course, I'm going to put this in full screen so you can see it a little bit better. But, this miniseries, Death by Lightning on Netflix, I watched it, and I gotta say that I was very impressed with it. And if you haven't watched it yet, first off, definitely a recommend if you are if you're a history buff and you really like to learn more about the historical side of things, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff that happens in this. For instance, if you're someone who really is interested in if you're really interested in learning more about the presidents, that's where I'm going with this. The presidents are very interesting in this because this gives you the sense of learning more about a guy who was the president of the United States that really did not, because of his assassination, it really got cut short, and really America doesn't really know much about who James Garfield is. Now, It starts out by showing you what his life was like at home before he goes to the Republican National Convention. And if you remember, back at that time, the Republican Party was split. You had Ulysses Grant, who was running. And, this is not all Grant's fault, but the people he had surrounding him within his campaign were corrupt people. And, of course, this was at a time where you had the spoils system that was really a detriment to the Republican Party and really to the nature of politics at that time. And so you have Ulysses Grant, who has the support from Roscoe Conkling, who was really the main man in this. He was really one that he defended the spoils system, and he was head first into the spoils system, and it was not good stuff that was going on with that. A lot of corrupt stuff. That's where a lot of your politicians were coming from, was from the spoils system, and quite frankly, it was not a good way of going about things. Then on the other side, which you had more than just these two candidates, but these are really the main two that had really set themselves apart until Garfield. But you had James Blaine, and Blaine also was what we would call today a career politician, but he was running as the anti-spoil, he was more anti-spoil system, more honest per se. So you kept having a split between the votes, and you had John Sherman in there. You had a bunch, and then I think there was another guy who was also wanting the nomination on the Republican side. But of course, John Sherman and the other guy really didn't have much of a chance. So it shows you about how that process worked and how it was not immediate. It took almost 40 votes within the Republican National Convention to get to deciding they want Garfield as their candidate for president. And so that's where it was really interesting to see is, and I mean, I don't know, and of course it's all for debate about, is it really because it's, they take a lot of liberties, and that's how it is in a lot of these miniseries. There's a lot of liberties taken to make it more entertaining. Well, they acted as if, one, Garfield was the second coming of Lincoln, which, to be honest, I don't know if you can really get a second coming of Abraham Lincoln. I don't think that's really a possibility. Secondly, though, they act as if Garfield legitimately did not want to be president. He did not have any desire. That could be debated as far as his motives, whether he wanted to be president or not. So it's really interesting to get to see this whole dynamic going down, because he's making a speech for John Sherman why he thinks Sherman should be the nominee for the Republican Party. It ends up he gets nominated. He's the candidate on the Republican side, and he's going to run against Hancock in this election. So you get past it, and then they got to choose a vice president. Well, Garfield had already left at this point, so he wasn't coming back to the convention. He's already been nominated to be president. And somehow, he wasn't coming back till later in the afternoon. He comes back, and there's Blaine standing there at the entrance of the convention, and they let him know Chester Arthur is going to be his running mate. Well, this is at a point where Garfield realizes who Arthur is. Arthur was one of Conkling's men, who was the port ambassador, which basically there in New York, he was helping Kit. Basically, what Conkling wanted done and he was entrenched in the spoil system. What Conkling wanted done, Arthur was the enforcer. Now, as far as how far it went, we don't really know, but we do know that Arthur was very heavily involved with Conkling in enforcing a lot of the stuff that happened that was very corrupt. Well, it gets to a point where these two are really butting heads. I mean, let me rephrase that. The people, Garfield portrayed it was more sitting there watching both sides of the Republican Party really fight this out. And it was kind of nasty a little bit. But it really is interesting, the dynamic that went down within the two sides of the Republican Party. And of course, and I mean, I have not mentioned this yet, but they do highlight a lot of Charles Guiteau, the man who ended up shooting James Garfield and causing him to die because of the bullet. Guiteau really, and I gotta say, the acting in this miniseries was amazing, in my opinion. And the man who played Guiteau, amazing. It made you really feel like this guy was mentally insane, which that's what they said he was. They said he was literally insane. He thought that because he went out and started campaigning for Garfield after Garfield got the nomination. Well, he felt as if he deserved a spot within Garfield's administration. So he was one of the many reporters or many people who went to the White House wanting to interview basically for positions, and Garfield turned him down. Well, at that point, Guiteau, with his mentally insane state of mind, decides, well, if I'm not going to be in the cabinet, then I'm going to take Garfield out for the betterment. Because how they portray this, which is probably not true, but apparently Guiteau and Chester Arthur were close. Now, of course, if that's historically accurate, we don't know, but that's how it's portrayed in this series. Well, and as I said before, Garfield and Chester Arthur on two separate sides of the Republican Party system. Like, they do not agree whatsoever. Chester Arthur even was undermining James Garfield and trying to get him out of, basically ruin everything with not passing through any of Garfield's nominees to go into his administration. Well, of course, after James Garfield's shot, Chester Arthur has a major change in his attitude. Basically, Garfield getting shot changes Arthur, maybe for the better. And so, a lot of what you see Chester Arthur after Garfield is killed, a lot of what Chester Arthur does, it seems like it's stuff that he's taking what Garfield wanted and just signing it into law. That's a lot of what's happening. Now, as far as the Chinese Exclusion Act, whether Garfield would have signed it or not, I don't know. Personally speaking, I don't think he would have, because I don't think Garfield was that type of guy to want to necessarily sign that bill. However, he didn't make it an issue in his campaigning. So he didn't address it at all. It wasn't something that was important to him to address. So I don't think he would have signed that with the stuff he stood for. But however, he didn't ever get a chance to really show us whether he would or not. That's just the honest truth. But yeah, just the contrast in showing Charles Guiteau and then showing James Garfield, basically both men, showing how the characters develop within this whole series was pretty remarkable. It was really remarkable to see. So yeah, I would say that this is definitely one of those series that, if you want to go watch it, it's really good. Do keep in mind there are some things in there that they shouldn't put in stuff like this, but they do because it's Netflix, and Netflix is a little bit more on the adult side when they go do stuff like this. So you'll have to watch out for that if Of course, if you're a parent and you want to show this to your kid, that may be something like there's a couple scenes you may want to just skip completely past. You'll thank me later for warning you about that, but overall, though, I really like the way that they did this series. I think if you're somebody who does not really know much about James Garfield and the story behind how he became president and then the man who shot him and everything, because really I love the presidential history. I knew about James Garfield, but as far as his shooter, Charles Guiteau, I didn't really know a whole lot. So this really gives a lot of insight into both people, and it was really remarkably done. I think that it was amazing, and so I would say this was really good. Definitely an A plus in just the historical value. Overall, probably a B just because of some of the other scenes you didn't have to put in there, but you did. They added it just because they could. So yeah, I would say B overall is my take from it, which I think is fair. I think it's a really good rating. So really good stuff. All right, let's move on. All right, Truth and Treason. Now, this movie came out about a month ago, and if you're someone who really loves to learn more about World War II and really the complexities that go into it, this was a really good movie. Now, it doesn't portray the war like directly. However, it's more of a showing you how like the people within Germany and the differences of like how they believed and whatnot. So the guy you see here on the screen, that's the main character, this is also based on a true story. So he's very young and he gets a job within City Hall there in the city that he lives in Germany. I can't remember what it was. Like I said, it's been a little bit since I've seen the movie, but I wanted to give a review on it because I never got to. But basically, he is having to he works in City Hall and he's starting to learn more about what the Germans are doing. His brother, who's also in the German army, he gets a radio, one that has one that's got basically the stuff that they wouldn't allow you. Like I think it's shortwave. That's right. It's a shortwave radio. Of course, if you're someone who knows what shortwave radio is, it's basically where you can watch, like you can listen to stuff that is hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So with this shortwave radio, he's able to pick up the BBC, which is definitely something that Germans did not want you listening to at the time because of it went against what Adolf Hitler was wanting you to hear and what the Nazis were wanting you to hear. Well, in this, you had a really interesting situation where he's learning more about what's truly going on, and he actually has a Jewish friend. Well, in this, the Jewish friend, of course, because of the Holocaust and you know what happens with that, his friend's taken from his home. And so what happens to this guy, he decides that he is going to take what he hears off the radio and from the truth of what is happening, and he's going to write letters, not going to tell anybody who he is, who's writing it, which, because if it happened, you're going to basically get killed for it. But he really makes sure that he puts down as much as possible and really tries to make the Germans think, do you truly want to go with Hitler's agenda here? What he's doing is completely evil. And so it's really, really good. He ends up at the end of it, which, because of the treason part, it's not called Truth and Treason for a reason. Um, but he ends up getting caught and he's put into jail, and it's brutal what they do to him. It is really brutal. And this is a guy, this is a kid. This is a kid who's like 16 or 17 years old. Like, he's young. And he's put into this camp. I mean, into this prison where they're like beating him and trying to ask if he had any help. For the longest, he would not say who was helping him. He had eventually told about his other two friends that were helping him. And near the end of the film, they're at the court, and the verdict's about to come down, and they ask him, for his test, like basically putting him on the stand. And he begins, because he knows that he could either cower down and just accept basically go with the lies that Germans were wanting him to go along with at the time, or he could speak the truth. And in that moment, he decides to speak the truth. And this causes him to be convicted to be beheaded. And as I'll say this, because having gone to the theater to see this, sitting there in the theater and watching that moment really puts into perspective just how evil the Germans, more like the Nazi regime in the Third Reich, what it was truly going on. It was truly communist in the sense of there is no free speech. We tell you what to believe, and if you go against that, we're going to take your life. It really is a good film for today in the sense of talking about how this is not, like, this shows you this is not where you want the United States to go. Because at the end of the day, when you lose your freedom of speech, then you lose everything. And so this was an incredibly moving film. This is one that, quite frankly, I think more people need to see this. And I'm talking about, if you live in America, I think most everybody needs to see this film. I know it doesn't directly involve Americans, but this gives you an idea of this is what life would be like if you lived in a society that did not let you have a freedom to speak and do what you want to do. And so it was a really good film. Really, really good film. And a lot of these films by Angel Studios can get that title of being kind of cringy for some of the topics they talk about in their films and whatnot. This one felt like this is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. And that's saying a lot, because I think there's been a lot of good movies here recently. Like, since around the time that Trump really got started in his campaign to get back into the White House in 2024, I think films really started getting really good. And then this one, I think, was really good. I would say, because I've seen a lot of movies this year. I will admit, I went to the theaters probably 20 plus times already this year. So yeah, I've been a lot. I got the plan where I can go see 4 movies a week if I wanted to. But all that to say, I've seen a lot of movies this year. This one was really good. I really think this is probably my favorite movie I've seen this year. And so it was very well done. I'd give it an A. Very well done. I would definitely recommend, if you want to go see this film. Well, actually, I don't think it's in the theaters anymore, but think it's on the Angel Studios app. I'm pretty sure it's probably somewhere else. I mean, most likely it's somewhere else. But let's see. I can look this up. But it was a really good movie. Let's see. So I'm pretty okay. It's on Angel for sure. But as far as where else you can watch the film, looks like. Excuse me. Right now, I don't think there's really many places you can watch it yet, but it was definitely a really interesting movie. Definitely, if you have the ability to watch it, I'd suggest go watch it. It was really good. So yeah, very good movie. Truth and Treason, A in my book. It's an A. All right, let's talk about some college football. Okay, announcement first. The Iron Bowl, we are going to be doing that Saturday right here on Saber Broadcast Network. Game starts at 6:30. Well, probably a little after 6:30 because ABC's got it. You know, they got to do their 20 minutes of talking about the game and all their commercials and getting their reports from the reporter and all that. So it's probably going to be like 6:50 before it ever really gets started. But all that to say, we are going to be here. We are going to be live at 6:30 Saturday night to give you the game. Also, another stream we're planning on doing Friday afternoon about 2:30. My plan is to go live because I'm right here in my studio. I'm going to be watching a bunch of games, but I'm planning on I'll see how long I want to go with a live stream, but I may try to be live so you can get my live reaction to Georgia and Georgia Tech, and then a little bit of Texas and Texas A&M later. So yeah, that's my plans for the channel. So Friday, more like a reaction stream, no like actual game broadcast where I'm doing the broadcasting, more like I'm sitting here reacting to the game as it's happening. And then Alabama, Auburn, sole focus on Saturday. So you do not want to miss it. We are going to have a great stream. So you want to be here, Saber Broadcast Network, Friday and Saturday. That is the plans. Now, let's talk about this football game. This is one of those that could really, I think it could go either way Saturday. And the reason why I say that is because Auburn, the last 2 weeks, although they're 1-1 with DJ Durkin as their interim head coach, I do think it's an interesting situation here. Now, I think Ashton Daniels is probably going to be starting at quarterback, which, personally speaking, I don't agree with that. After what I saw Saturday, which the last 2 weeks, I've been to football games. I went to Alabama, Oklahoma, and then I went to Auburn and Mercer. I know, two very opposite types of games. But first, let's start with Auburn. The one thing I got to say is Deuce Knight, if he returns to Auburn next season and whoever becomes the head coach, whether it's Durkin, which I think that would be a stupid move by Auburn. I don't think he's the guy. Of course, Auburn's going to, if they beat Alabama somehow, Durkin is guaranteed to be the head coach. Whether you agree with that or not, that's how Auburn runs. If you win the Iron Bowl as an interim head coach, they're pretty much going to hand you the job if you're Durkin, which is stupid. It is ridiculous. It's stupid. It is how it is. Auburn, their national championship is winning the Iron Bowl. Let's be honest and call it for what it is. So, yeah, if you look at this, it's a really interesting matchup. I think Deuce Knight, personally, after what I saw Saturday, I think it would be interesting to see him go out there and have to play against Alabama. He played a really good game against Mercer. I mean, he had like 4 touchdowns on the ground. I think he threw for like 2 or 3 in the air. Jackson Arnold ran one in. So yeah, I think that Deuce Knight, to me, I really wonder how Auburn would have been had they actually played him, and whether or not that could have saved Hugh Freeze's job. Like, legitimately, that could have saved Hugh Freeze had they said, okay, let's play Deuce Knight. We're going to struggle. Let's put him out there, and maybe we make a season out of this. But no. I mean, like I said, I don't understand the whole idea of not playing Deuce Knight until Saturday. We saw him against Mercer. He played great. He was impressive in my opinion. I think Deuce Knight, which of course you would have to see against a really good football team how good he would be throwing the football. But what I saw from him Saturday, he could be really good. One thing, and I think it just comes with experience for Deuce Knight, but there's a couple times where he probably had one of his receivers wide open going deep, and he didn't see him. He just didn't look for him, didn't see him. And so he missed a couple of receivers, but that just comes with experience and actually knowing where to look, moving your eyes and all that kind of thing. Auburn's defense, and this is where I think it's concerning. Hugh Freeze, offensive head coach, offense is dog crap while he's head coach. Defense, pretty good. Auburn's defense could beat anybody. Offense can't do nothing. Hugh Freeze is gone. Suddenly, they can play offense. Excuse me. But the problem, they can't play defense. How is that possible? First quarter against Mercer, their defense allows Mercer to score 14. It was 14-7 Mercer near the end of the first quarter. Like, Auburn, what? I got to say this, though. And because of how the nature of this Iron Bowl is, just because Auburn has not looked good all season, go look at how they played against Georgia. About beat Georgia. They should have beat Georgia. Well, if they play the way I think they may play, they could very likely beat Alabama. And here is the game plan. If I'm Auburn, here's how you beat Alabama. Alabama has always been known since Saban. They have a hard time beating mobile dual threat quarterbacks. Look at early in the season, Tommy Castellanos. I mean, he just burned them. And it's Gus Malzahn's offense that was being ran there in Florida State. Of course, Florida State's not that good this year. But it's that offense. And there's just that ability, if you have a mobile quarterback, it could spell a lot of trouble for Alabama. So Castellanos, he did good. The loss to Oklahoma, there again, that was just mistakes by Alabama. But when you look at, you got a guy like Ashton Daniels, which I don't think he's the most mobile guy they have, which I don't again, Durkin should not be the coach, because if he's the one making this call about having Daniels be the starter, I mean, come on, that's just stupid. I would go Deuce Knight. That's just my opinion for Auburn. Deuce Knight, I think, gives Auburn the best ability to win this game. So, of course, mobile quarterback, I think you got to be able to run the ball effectively as a quarterback. And then if you can get your defense back going, if you can turn Alabama over 2 or 3 times in this game, that would be big. If your defense can hold Alabama to about somewhere in the range of 17 to 20 points, and then turn Alabama over, and you can actually score on offense in this game against Bama, because Bama's got a good defense. I think Auburn's in good shape here. That's where I truly believe. So let's look at Alabama's side of this. If you're Alabama, first off, I think what you got to do is you got to tell Ty, hey man, you got to take care of the football. That is first and foremost. We don't need a situation where it comes down to Connor Talty having to kick a field goal to win the game. We've seen what happens when Alabama kickers are relied on to win a game in Jordan-Hare. Go back 12 years ago. What happened if you're Alabama? You cannot rely on Connor Talty to have to kick a field goal to win the game. I'm just keeping it real with you. I'm just being honest. Alabama, what you got to do is you got to dominate. That's what you got to do on Saturday. You got to put your foot down and say, we deserve to be in that SEC championship game. We are the upper dog in this state. We have beaten Auburn for I think it's 4 or 5 straight years. We are going to dominate Auburn. We're going to show you why we're 9-2 and they're 5-6. We can keep Auburn out of a bowl game. Alabama, this is a game where you've got to dominate. You got to get the run game going and you got to dominate. Ty Simpson, he's got to be able to get the ball where it needs to go. Ryan Williams, he's got to really get going. I know that they're 9-2 right now, but when it comes to if they get in that playoff let's put the playoff to the side for a second. SEC championship game against Texas A&M. You need Ryan Williams there. You need a good Ryan Williams to be able to get down the field and actually do things for Alabama. That's what you need. And so, Ryan Williams, you got to step up in this game. This is the Iron Bowl. You're playing at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It's time to go. You got to be ready to go. So, if you're Alabama, it's all about can your offense do what it needs to do to win the game. Defense, I have full trust that the defense is going to show up and play a good football game for Alabama. So, overall, where am I looking at this game? And then where do I, as far as who do I think's winning and what do I think the score is going to be? Well, I think Bama wins this game. I would say this is one of those that I think is going to be 27-21. I think it's 27-21 Alabama win. I think it comes down to, Ashton Daniels and the Tigers are driving, and then you have the Alabama defense intercept Daniels, and they end the game there. I think that's what's going to happen Saturday. I think it makes for a really interesting football game. And quite frankly, this is the Iron Bowl. I live here in the state of Alabama. This is what we live for. There are a couple things in the state that we really do love. First off, God is our number one. God, go to church. Our faith is first and foremost as important. It's the most important thing in our lives. Secondly, though, football. Football in this state is huge. And there is nothing bigger. There's no professional football teams in the state of Alabama. This is the biggest game. This is a state divided. You're either a Bama fan or you're an Auburn fan. That's just how it works. If you're from the state of Alabama, if you were born and raised here, you're either in Bama or you're an Auburn fan. That is how it works. So this game means a lot. It means a whole lot. And quite frankly, Saturday, it's going to be a close game, and it's going to show you why it means a lot. These players are going to be playing probably, I would say, at least on the Auburn side, this is their Super Bowl. This is the biggest game they're probably going to play in because this is the Iron Bowl. Alabama, it is to be determined. Is this the biggest game they'll play in the regular season? Or do they come out and feel like, oh, well, they're 5-6. They're terrible. Can't do that in the Iron Bowl. Can't do that if you're Alabama. Your mentality of how you come into the football game is huge. So we're going to see Saturday what happens. Folks, that is pretty much all I have for tonight. Of course, like I said, Friday we're going to be back. We're going to be doing a reaction to the college football games that are happening live. So you don't want to miss that. And then, of course, Saturday we are going to do play-by-play for Alabama and Auburn. So you don't want to miss a single moment of the action. So with all that being said, thanks for watching tonight, guys. We will see you again on Friday. Good night, everybody.